OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Sorry, Phil, what's going on?
Well, we're talking Premier League, yeah?
We are. Let's start with the must-watch games this weekend. So we've got our must-watch games, our might-watch games, and our won't-watch games. So in our must-watch, first of all, I think the only place to start really is in the North London derby, Arsenal against Spurs this weekend. Do you give Arsenal any chance in this?
Well, not of winning, no. No, I think the best Arsenal can hope for this is a draw. I think it's going to be quite cagey because one thing you associate now with Mikel Arteta is trying to make his team solid. Now, I think when Arteta took over, obviously, ideally he wanted to play four at the back, but he probably realised soon enough that if you're going to put David Luiz as part of a two-man central defensive pairing, it's not going to work. So he went with three. It was quite successful, obviously, won them the FA Cup. Now, for some reason, he's starting to veer away from that, but I don't think they're quite ready for that. And I know David Luiz was involved in that really nasty incident last weekend with Raúl Jiménez, and he shouldn't have stayed on the pitch. But before that all happened, he was still picked as one of two, and it just doesn't work. David Luiz fits in fine into a three-man central defence because, you know, he's a ball-playing centre-half. But if you've got two people keeping an eye on him, he's fine. But if it's just one other player, David Luiz is not the most trustworthy as a centre-half. And if you think of how good Spurs are at the moment, you'd seriously worry. But Jose Mourinho insists he's not playing mind games by saying Harry Kane wasn't available last night and might be available this weekend. But even if Harry Kane wasn't available, I'd still be leaning towards Spurs. But I think it's going to be quite cagey. And it's funny, though, if you think back to kind of around this time last year, Arteta was coming in and Mourinho had taken over at Spurs, and there was a lot of negativity around Mourinho and could he do it? But what a difference a year makes. Even what a difference a few months makes, where Arsenal, obviously, mentioned that they won the FA Cup and it was onwards and upwards for Arteta. They got a few decent players in, but they just can't score goals at the moment. And you know, the European wins are like all well and good, but they have to start winning. They're 14th in the Premier League. It's first against 14th. You could say form goes out the window because it's a derby, but I don't think it will.
I don't remember a North London derby ever being this favoured towards Spurs in my life. Like, there have been ups and downs for sure for both clubs, but in terms of, as you say, first versus 14th, I'm not sure has that ever happened in Spurs' favour in the Premier League era. Yeah,
I think even with Pochettino, when he was in charge and Spurs were at the peak of their powers, I think there was a few of those North London derbies where you feared for Arsenal going into it, but they somehow managed to get a performance out of it. I can actually remember, I know this game is in White Hart Lane or the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whatever you want to call it, but I can remember a couple of years ago under Emery, Spurs went to the Emirates and everyone expected them to turn over Arsenal. Arsenal played one of their best games. This is when Alexis Sanchez was still an Arsenal player, and they beat them, and they basically did to Tottenham what Tottenham had been doing to teams, where they just outworked them and outplayed them. I can't see it happening though this weekend. I think Arsenal are just going to have to dig in and make themselves tough to beat, and who knows, they might be able to nick something on the break. Whether they can keep Spurs out, I wouldn't be so confident.
Liverpool against Wolves is second up in your must-watch games. Why are you going for this one? Why is this an absolute must-watch in your view?
Because we want to see how Caoimhin Kelleher gets on in his Premier League debut. Obviously, there's a few things going on. You know, you've got fans back at Anfield. Liverpool are a patch-up job at the moment, but they're still getting results. I know they didn't win last weekend in the Premier League, but all the injuries they have, they're still joint top of the Premier League. They've qualified for the last 16 of the Champions League with a game to spare. So all is not as bad as it might seem, given all the players they're missing. Kelleher was excellent against Ajax, and Klopp explained afterwards why he picked him, because this is a guy that can play with the ball at his feet, and it sounds quite simple, but Adrian simply hasn't been able to do it. I keep talking about that Aston Villa game. Gives the ball away after a couple of minutes, a stray pass to Joe Gomez, Ollie Watkins takes it, it's 1-0, and Liverpool never really recovered from it. But also, you think back to the Atletico game, Adrian, his confidence just looked shot, so it was no surprise that Kelleher came in. But I suppose the most positive thing for Kelleher coming in was not only did he get the nod, but he also backed it up, and this is going to be a big occasion for him as well, because it's a Premier League game at Anfield. There will be a few fans behind him in the Kop end as well. So big deal for Caoimhin Kelleher. Also, Diogo Jota, who turns 24 today, blistering start to his Liverpool career, and you'd wonder what he wants to do against Wolves, because a few eyebrows were raised when this signing was made. It was the same day that Thiago had signed for Liverpool, and this was the signing that got everyone excited. And Liverpool fans, I think, looked at Jota and thought, yeah, he's definitely better backup than somebody like Divock Origi. But is he going to challenge the front three? Well, he's done more than that. He's now that player that you have to fit him into the team. So there's plenty to look forward to. And obviously, Wolves' great win against Arsenal last week, and worryingly for Liverpool, Adama Traore looked like he was kind of getting back to that menacing best that he is when he plays on the counter-attack.
Signing of the season, according to Michael Owen, Diogo Jota. They only paid 41 million for him. But on Kelleher, Phil, obviously long live Alisson's dodgy hamstrings. But what happens? Alisson's only 28, Kelleher's 22, and without heaping the pressure on him, he's going to be the Ireland keeper for the next 20 years. He needs to. What's he going to do? What's he going to do with his? Alisson could be the Liverpool keeper for another 5 or 6 years. He can't be hanging around for that, obviously.
Well, I don't think it does him any harm in the short term training alongside somebody like Alisson, because Alisson is an unbelievable goalkeeper. Liverpool, when Klopp came in, obviously had Mignolet and Karius, and Mignolet hadn't worked out. Klopp went for Karius, went horribly wrong that night in Kiev, and then Alisson comes in, and it's no coincidence Liverpool have won the Champions League and the Premier League since Alisson has come in. Unfortunately for Liverpool, he is injury prone. He's picking up little injuries. So Kelleher, you can see, what we've seen of Kelleher so far, obviously the other night was the first time he's played in what you would consider the first team now, albeit with a few players missing, but not a Carabao Cup game or an FA Cup replay where you're playing basically in a second or third team and you don't get much protection. He was playing with the first team and he looked the part the other night. So I think there was talk of him going out on loan at the start of the season, but obviously Alisson got that injury, and I don't think Kelleher's going anywhere anytime soon. I think Adrian could be the one that is shipped out. I know Liverpool signed a young Brazilian goalkeeper as well. Alisson's brother had something to do with that deal as well. Came from the same club as Alisson, so he's only 17. This young keeper. So I think Kelleher's future still is very much at Liverpool.
And as backup to Alisson, he's going to get plenty of games a season. He doesn't necessarily need to go on loan to get up that experience. Phil, just 2 more games to touch on in the must-watch category. Sometimes you have these mid-table sides who are going extremely well and you expect them to really put it up to a big team, and then their challenge falls away almost immediately on the night. I think this is going to happen in both of these games at the weekend. West Ham against Manchester United and Chelsea against Leeds. West Ham and Leeds, both in a brilliant place. But something just tells me about these games that Chelsea and Manchester United are going to win with the cushion of a couple of goals. What do you reckon? Why are these must-watch?
Well, I think West Ham, a lot of people tipped David Moyes to be the first manager to be sacked, and obviously they were horrific the first night against Newcastle, and then you looked at their fixture list, but they've put in some unbelievable performances and they find themselves in 5th place, and he's made them very solid and got rid of the likes of Lanzini doesn't really get his game in there. Felipe Anderson, flair players. He's got lads that are willing to work from. They sit in. They play 3 at the back, and obviously Antonio is back as well. So very much a David Moyes looking team now. Something that you would have associated with his Everton side, where they're very hard to beat and more than capable of grinding out results. Now the problem for West Ham playing against Manchester United, as good as West Ham have been against United in the last couple of games, they're playing a United team that play their best games away from home. Even last weekend, 2-0 down to Southampton, they shouldn't have found themselves in that position because they had chances in the first half, but it was no surprise to see them come back. And yeah, I think just the way they play, I think this will suit United. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be an absolute stroll in the park. I think it's going to be one that they're going to have to work for. But United, one characteristic you have with United away from home this season is they finish games very well. The last 15 minutes is when they're getting their goals. Like, they conceded first against Newcastle. They ended up winning that game 4-1. They obviously 2-0 down at half-time last week. They come back, they win 3-2. So the late show is what you can expect from United away from home.
Just on Chelsea Leeds, do Bielsa and Lampard still hate each other?
I don't know. I think it's all good now because they're both in the Premier League and they're not duking it out for...
They both won, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's... Obviously, things are going very well for Chelsea at the moment. That was a very impressive result away to Sevilla. The fact that Sevilla don't concede many goals and Chelsea put 4 past them. And I suppose one question Frank Lampard's going to have to answer is, does he start Olivier Giroud? He hasn't started him in the Premier League this season. Very hard to leave out a guy that scores 4 goals. And obviously one of them was a penalty, but the hat-trick was so impressive. Now, he's obviously gone with Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner in attack, so will he revert back to that? With Leeds, I've said it, Leeds are always must-watch. We know how they're going to play. Some weeks it's going to work, some weeks it won't. Last week it worked against Everton. They create plenty of chances. I'd imagine if you're a Leeds fan, it's thrilling to watch, but at the same time frustrating because they create so many chances, but they don't put enough away. But certainly this will be a good test for Chelsea because, you know, obviously Spurs went to Stamford Bridge last weekend and it was clear after about 20 minutes Chelsea were fearful that they could get caught out by the way Spurs countered them. So the game kind of petered out after a fairly good opening 20 minutes. It was quite clear that neither team wanted to lose that game. But Chelsea be certainly looking to win this game. I think it'll be a very good game. There's not many Leeds games that are dull.
Your might watch list is Burnley versus Everton, Sheffield United versus Leicester and Brighton against Southampton. And your won't watch is West Brom against Crystal Palace because it's West Brom against Crystal Palace. And Manchester City against Fulham. Is that because you think City are just going to smash them?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much Manchester City, just replace Burnley with Fulham, and that's kind of the afternoon you're going to get, where as impressive as Fulham were away to Leicester last Monday and they played them at the counter-attack, City have better attacking players in terms of more intricate attacking players than Leicester. Leicester do their best work on the counter-attack, whereas City are going to love having the ball against Fulham and Fulham saying, can you pick us off? And of course they will. And they'll probably be 2-0 up after about 20 minutes. So.
And Dundalk Rovers must watch as well?
Absolutely, yeah. You kind of favour Rovers. Dundalk had their moments last night, but again, a bit of a worry. I know it was something that they picked up on in the Virgin Media coverage, was just the way they're defending set pieces. So that's certainly something that Shamrock Rovers will be looking at. But Rovers have had the upper hand on Dundalk this season, so they'll obviously fancy their chances. Yeah, it's a 6:40 kickoff. Which, can somebody explain that one to me?
Phil Egan.
Wouldn't happen in mind you plan, Phil.
That's it.
I
mean,
I don't even know where to start with that, Adrian. I was honestly.
You're having it, Phil.
It was very early for me. I was going.
Same.
Yeah. Maybe I need to wake up.
Phil, the short story is you're going to see more League of Ireland teams playing in Europe every single year.
Phil,
what's not to love?
Phil needs to go do the day job. He's going to end up missing it to listen to your plan again. Phil Egan, thanks a million for joining us. It is 7:58 on this Friday morning. A packed show still to come.